Welcome to Sloppy Spoilers with your host, DT2. All right, folks, we are here to review 2 more episodes of Ahsoka. We're going to do episode 3 and 4 tonight, and I have rarely been stumped for words and descriptions. That normally is not an issue for me, but this thing is really bad, but has the potential to be really good at the same time. It walks up to the edge of goodness, not greatness, and then it does stuff to ensure that what could have been good, what maybe could have been great, just stays kind of meh, kind of bland. It's like having a meal and you can taste a little bit of salt and pepper, but they didn't put enough in to make it spicy and make you want to finish the meal. It feels like that. Let me bring on my co-host. Welcome to David Nemesis Howard.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I will give fair warning to everybody. Episode 3, we're talking about 3 and 4 today. Episode 3 made me as mad as Picard season 2, and that's all I'm going to say. These guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So.
Wow. Because Picard season 2 is when we got, what's her name, Girardi Borg. See, there's nothing on television worse than that. Let me bring on Steve Shadewing Sellers.
We were at the verge of greatness. We were this close. I tend to agree with you on that point. I mean, the thing of it is like, I came away from episode 4 thinking, what are you doing, Dave Filoni? Just what are you doing? Because there are just things about it where it gets entertaining and you kind of want to see what's going on. There are some interesting ideas in there. And then the execution of those ideas just makes you shake your head and wonder what is going on in the writer's room that you are not doing the things that you used to know how to do in things like Rebels and Clone Wars and first couple seasons of Mando. I mean, he's a good writer. He's not showing it here. And yet, I love seeing these characters again. And every so often there's a moment that's like, yeah, that's cool. I do like this. So it's just, I think overall it's a mediocre show. It's another show where, time management is a huge problem. And it seems which seems to be a common refrain of mine whenever it comes to Disney shows. And it's unfortunate because, I mean, this show should have been better and it could have been better. And I was looking forward to it.
Well, they had a lot riding on it. Do you remember at the end of Empire when Vader asked them, did they disable the hyperdrive on the Falcon? Mm-hmm. And 3PO was trying to fix it. R2 goes up, sticks his little bolt in, and just a little tweak, and the hyperdrive was fixed. That's what this feels like. Just a little tweak, and this thing could really take off. Let's bring on Jeff, Mr. Happy Bracey.
Well, you can call me Jeff, not so Mr. Happy Bracey. Nim, if you could, just fix your mustache one more time. You did like 4 times, maybe 5. Yeah, that's the stuff, baby. That's it. Like, slowly. Don't waste it. I've decided that I'm going to call the show Ahsoka because it's a bait and switch. Because it was never Snoke, it was always the Emperor. So like this promised us Ahsoka, and it's been anything but. Not even as good as Ahsoka and the Mandalorian. I actually had some hopes for this show. Andor had been, after a slow start, had gotten relatively good, pretty darn good. I went into this thinking like this should have been an easy win for Disney, but it's like DT, I see the potential, but I find myself being either confused by decisions, kind of bored by what's going on, or just frustrated by things they decide to do that don't make any sense and don't work within the context of the universe or even the narrative of the show as is. And Disney just does, like we were talking with backstage a little while ago, like Disney doesn't care about canon, not even from show to show, or apparently even episode to episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we talked about all of that when we decided if we were going to review the show or not. And this is what we thought might happen. So I'm going to do something unusual here, and I'm going to jump in first with my writer's hat before I start with my fan hat. With my writer's hat, I see immediately that there's a core issue that's off, and that issue is the editing. Now, you make a movie or a TV show 3 times. You make it once when you write it, twice when you shoot it, third time when you edit it. And if you don't have top-notch quality at all 3 stages of creation, if the script isn't there, if the direction and the acting isn't there, and then when we get all the raw footage, if we don't put it together correctly, you're not going to get a final product. And as I was watching tonight, you know how things can jump out at you and scream at you. I'm like, what is bothering me? And I'm like, it's the editing, it's the pacing. I understand, going back to my fan hat, I understand that what you're trying to do is make the characters more serious, more sober, more somber.
Yes.
Serious, more sober, more somber. And you got a hint. And the thing about it is, you got a hint tonight of what they've been trying to do when you saw Balin step back into meditation and then fight. That was your clue for those that weren't sure that this is what they've been trying to show Ahsoka and Sabine and everybody do, but only Balin really pulled it off, number one. But number two, in terms of the pacing, okay, it's like a good melody. You've heard me talk about it before. A good melody has a peak. Like the national anthem's peak is over the land of the free. And then it's called tension and release. This show is crap at tension and release from an editing point of view. Just unbelievably so. Like, how could you not know how to build to a point, increase the tension to a point, then give us emotional resolution and release, and then we go on to the next thing? Because that's what it means to be an editor. That's like your job, to make sure that happens. And so as I'm watching, when last week's episode, which we're going to get into, was so bad until I couldn't remember what happened because nothing happened. I'm like, I got to go back. What happened? I couldn't remember. I'm like, I couldn't remember one scene except the space whales because they were so fortuitous. It was just so incredible that it showed up. But tonight it was like, how can you have lightsaber fights that are almost good and almost there, and yet at the same time disappointing? I'm like, how is such a thing possible? It's editing, it's pacing. And so if you don't get that right, even your best lines, even if they're delivered to perfection by the actors, won't have the impact. You got to go back and look at things that are edited well and paced well, and you see the dialogue builds, the music behind the scene builds, the action going on between the actors builds, and then you have the payoff. And we never get that in this show. We never get it. What we get is, it might happen. It might, oh no, it didn't happen. Ahsoka might show an emotion. She smiled tonight. Oh, she might show an emotion. I said, oh no, that happened. Okay, Sabine's severely outclassed. She need to die. She need to be cut in half. She can't go toe to toe. Oh no, didn't die. Like that. And I'm like, So anyway, let me bring my co-hosts in on this because we all got some rants tonight. So that was just part one of mine. Let's start.
Oh, wow. It's giving us audience blue balls.
Leave it to Bracy to make it plain. So let's start with episode 3, Time to Fly. What I didn't like about that is that I don't even remember seeing something where I'm screaming at the screen like, is anything going to happen? Nothing's happening. What happened? So let me hear from you guys. I know Nims has a rant, so I'm going to let you go last. So Steve, you start, then we're going to go to Bracy, and then Nims, you fire that rant up because we need to hear it.
Well, yeah, I didn't hate it as much as you guys obviously did, but I didn't love it either. And looking back on it, I had to think about what happened in it because I don't remember very much of what I saw.
I'm saying.
And I will say, I was watching Hate Watchers on YouTube, and they're like a channel that I really have kind of gotten into because they do see the nuances and things, but and they're funny on top of that. And they made a point that I thought was salient, which is that Dave Filoni is trying to make a live action show like an animator, and it shows. And I have to say that definitely kind of rang true with me, because if you look at the space scene where Ahsoka is flying off in space, deflecting blasters with her lightsabers and things like that. I'm like, that would have looked so much cooler in the Clone Wars. But here he is, like, working in a medium that he's not really used to doing. He got some on the job training with Jean Favreau, probably, about how to do it, and he probably learned a few things from that. But I don't think he's learned enough, and I don't think he's managed to make it quite work. And oh my God, there are just points where it just looks ridiculous on screen, where it would have looked so much better in animation the way that he normally does it. And even in episode 4, you see a little bit of that as well. But even if it's not quite as annoying as that scene was, I mean, overall, and then there's just stuff that I didn't like at all. Conceptually, I still don't think that Sabine being Ahsoka's apprentice makes any sense. They try to justify it, and it just doesn't work. And on top of that, it just this last episode that we just saw kind of cemented for me like why I thought it made no sense. But once again, they have to set the thing up for the bad thing to happen, even though Ahsoka should know better. And it's just nothing about this whole thing works. And again, I think my time management issues are also editing issues. So I think you put that in and put that plain for me, because Filoni just does not know how to cut these things together properly in live action. And I think a lot of his inexperience with live action is really showing, both in the editing, in the shooting, and in some of the writing. Because he seems to have an idea of what works in his head and what works on a storyboard, and it just doesn't work in the medium he's shooting it. And we see that over and over again. And, it's just disappointing, not just because of that, but because Filoni is making writing decisions that are bizarre. He's throwing in callbacks that, he's not explaining to anybody who hasn't seen Rebels for 4 seasons. Like, okay, here are the space whales. That's a thing that happened. If you don't know, what happened in Rebels and didn't see the finale, are you going to know who they are? Are you going to care? No, not really.
No.
Are you going to know that Hera has a son? It's like, okay, here's this kid. And what's worst of it is that they blew a major opportunity with that character, because he should have been Ahsoka's apprentice. And we even see in this episode that he definitely has some force sensitivity. So, I mean, everything I'm seeing is like, why are you doing this whole thing with Sabine when you have another character that would have worked better? And, all to set up a conflict that makes no sense, and that Ahsoka would have known not to start. So everything is just, I don't mind watching it. I don't hate it. I mean, it's not like something that I hate on the level of like Kenobi, but it's just like, this is still mediocre Disney Star Wars. You're not, bringing it the way that you used to bring it. And it's just such a disappointment. Filoni's better than this. We've said that he's better than this, but he's not better than this on the show. And that's what's so frustrating.
Well, one of the things you have to learn when you make a comic book is not to have your characters do too many things on a page, or not to skip sequence steps. Like they're standing over here, and then the next panel, they're on the other side of the room holding a gun. You can't do that. You need to show them walking, or you need to have some type of time elapsed thing. And many times people complain about that in comics, where the flow of the action isn't clear from the panels. You don't have to show every step. You have to show the important steps. Okay, that's what Steve's talking about here, and that's what I'm talking about with the editing in this medium. You don't have to show every step, but you need to show important steps. Also, before I throw it to Bracy, once again, there's an epic Twitter thread on my timeline if you want to wade through it, where we're going back and forth about what the Force is and how the Force works. And I might do a rant room on that. I'm definitely going to do a rant room this week on Gotham War, so that's coming. But I might do a rant room on how the Force works because sometimes, you know, whatever people are saying, I just stop talking because I'm like, you're not going to change my mind. And now we're just talking in circles. So there's no need to continue the conversation. But you didn't change my mind. And so I want to point that out as we go forward. And that is that I want to make it very, very clear. George Lucas has never cared about canon or continuity. He makes it up as he goes along. It's not a criticism. I'm not trying to criticize this man. It's an observation. So when you do that and you don't have any rules to your story world, whether you like it or not, whether you understand it or not, whether you think it's fair or not, there are no stakes. If there's no canon, if there's no rules, if there's no boundaries, if there's no choice and consequence, there's no penalties and rewards, there are no stakes. So you've got to make up your mind, is the Force faith-based? Is it character-based? Because that's what the original trilogy says, even though I know Kenobi had that talk with Luke. Yoda focuses on managing your dark emotions and not giving into them. So is it faith-based? Is it character-based? Or is it midichlorians? Is it science-based? You're able to access the Force because of a certain amount of things in your blood. Okay, so then it's faith and science? Or is it training? Since it's a living force and since it's connected to all things alive and everybody has it and everybody can access it. So if you train hard enough, then you can be a Jedi because anybody can be a Jedi. See, you can't have all them. Okay, Bracy.
Well, I do think George does have an established canon, but it's only established after he's finished a project because he does do things on the fly in between episode 1, 2, and 3. You know, you see he decides to make Luke and Leia brother and sister. That was never part of the thing. Darth Vader was never originally supposed to be his dad. He changed the Force from a mystical force to a science-based thing in the prequels because he got kind of freaked out that people in the real world were practicing a Jedi religion. And that weirded him out to the point he's like, I got to put the brakes on this. So sometimes things like that happen. Sometimes the artist affects the audience. Sometimes the audience affects the artist, for good or ill. That sort of thing happens. But as far as this episode goes, like I did not miss that they just kind of glossed over the whole midichlorians thing. It's like, oh, you know, anybody can be a Jedi. Like, nope. That's literally until Disney got a hold of it. It's never worked like that. Not even with George. Not just any old Tom, Dick, or Harry could be a Jedi. But now she's like literally pulling out the Yoda lines, like it's in you, it's in me, it's between the rock and the ship and all this. And I was like, oh no, nope, does not compute, does not work, not having it. And I'm with Steve. I'm trying to figure out what is going on with Dave because he's better than this. We've seen better than this, and even with the idea of him working with live action, I would have thought he'd worked in it enough with Favreau to kind of get it. And we can get into this more in episode 4 because we got some lightsaber fights in there. But that's something that really bugged me because even during the last season of the Clone Wars that they put out, where Ahsoka meets and battles Darth Maul, they stopped keyframe animation. I don't know why, because it was a bit jarring to go from keyframe to mocap. But they got Ray Park and another stunt actress to get in there and mocap battle Darth Maul. He just decided, like, yeah, it would be really cool if we got Ray Park to do Darth Maul again. So he has directed living people doing lightsaber fights. And these are the most unimpressive lightsaber fights I've ever seen in any Star Wars media, handled by LucasArts ever, which is astonishing because as bad as Kenobi was, the lightsaber fights were the shit. I mean, like, I was tuning in for Vader versus Kenobi's like, okay, this never happened. They didn't meet again until the Death Star, but like, the fights kick ass. And I don't understand. It's like, it almost looks like Force Awakens level of fighting, just slightly better. Did the crew not have the time to train? I know Rosario Dawson had already done some of this stuff, so she should have a handle on it. But like, it's so slow, and I just as a martial artist, I keep looking at it like, oh yeah, you'd be dead there. You'd be dead there. Yep, you're dead there. Oh, you turned your back to throw a rock. She stabs you through the gut, but that won't kill you. But still, you're done. Fight's over. You're dead, 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 and that bugs the piss out of me. And like Nim is like the everybody can be a Jedi thing, but then it takes it a step further. Another iconic thing about Star Wars are the epic space battles. Filoni's obviously directed a bunch of these things, and they are CGI, so they're animated. There's no reason he can't do this. These ships are all CGI. The Clone Wars, Rebels, all CGI. So it's the same thing. It's just a different level of modeling and textures. And I'm watching these ships come in, and it's so boring. They're kind of recreating the Millennium Falcon, dealing with the TIE fighters, and it's just nowhere near as exciting. And a large part of that is editing. The editing is very bad on this. There's no excitement. There's no tension. And they just make it look like the ship is just on this flat plane. It's not doing anything until they finally decide to work together. I don't know why you're not taking evasive maneuvers all the time. Again, look at what they did with like the space battles and the Mandalorian. Those were freaking great. But she's just sitting there, so Sabine can fire, and they're like, oh, we can easily dodge around you, even though you're a Mandalorian. You know all this stuff about weaponry, but you can't. I haven't done this well. Like, well, you're fighting with a lightsaber. You haven't done that in a while, and you did kind of okay, enough not to get chopped into 7 pieces right away. It's like, oh, we've got to work together. Like this force thing, like we have to work together. That's the only way anything ever works. Because as soon as they split off, even for a moment, everything goes to hell. And it's like, come on, people, that's just getting dumb. And it just killed me. Like they get taken out by the flak producing in space turbo lasers. They're not even in the atmosphere like they were on Coruscant producing flak, which maybe I could go along with, but now they're producing flak in space, and the ship starts to tumble. It's like, oh yeah, we'll take them out. We've got them now, and the 2 force sensitives buzz in to deal with them. And what do? Ahsoka goes outside on the ship to deflect blaster bolts. Okay, I'm down with that. I can even accept the flippity flu that when she jumps, she just doesn't fly back into space. She Mary Poppins her ass back down to the ship, with her Magna boots and all that. Okay, I'm good with that. But here's the thing: you had 4 ships at the time. There were 4 ships left attacking this vessel. Why didn't they all attack from different directions? Why were there not 2 coming down and 2 coming from below? Ahsoka can't be on 2 surfaces at once. Boom, dead, no problem.
Their pattern indicates 2-dimensional thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. And
it was
Don't name it Ahsoka.
Yeah, it was so boring. How do you turn the most exciting parts of Star Wars into the most boring, slack, nonsensical stuff I ever saw that just breaks anything established in the world? And then when their big escape, like, okay, you're flying in between space whales, but now you've got 2 force sensitives on your tail. How do you lose them in the clouds when we know force users don't even rely on their eyesight all the time? Where did they go?
Forget this several times in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, like where did they go? Oh, they clearly flew this way. She's strong in the force. I can feel her. We'll find her. Like that criticism you have, DT, all the time. It's like they keep everything so ambiguous. I understand why Lucas would do that, so he would be free to do anything he wanted to. But when you've seen some sort of established power stunts, as you will, you expect people to be able to do them if they're at a even basically competent level. And they're in very close proximity. They're not trying to assess where she is in the galaxy or anything like that. We're in the same atmosphere. We're maybe thousands of feet apart, and we lose them in the clouds. But I can deflect blaster bolts with my eyes closed. So I hate episode 3.
Yeah. So much on that, but we're going to get to the epicness. I just do have to comment briefly that gravity boots, Magna boots, whatever, wouldn't have done that. You have to use the force to do that.
No, she's got to use the Force to get back on the ship, obviously, because she can't flip an arc when there's no gravity.
Right.
But
right.
then, if she's doing that, why does Sabine have to come pick her up? Why don't she just Mary Poppins her butt back to the ship like Princess Leia did?
But my
You're stealing my rant.
Okay, but my point is that just like with Admiral Gender Studies, Admiral Holden, putting on her hyperspace. See, once you establish that something can be done, this is why I stop arguing with people on Twitter, because you don't understand if it happens in the world, that wouldn't have been the first time and it would have been repeated. So they had to go back and retcon and say, okay, well, that was a once in a lifetime thing. Do Jedi get out of their ships in the middle of a firefight and flippity-foo force their way to? Do they do that?
I will say, like, because I know you refer to the comics sometimes, these Disney supposedly canon comics, because you love the Darth Vader, like, oh, I'm only surrounded by fear and dead men.
Mm-hmm.
Darth Vader in that same series actually has a lightsaber battle outside on a spaceship. So he's either using the Force or some Magna boots or something, and he latches down to a ship. We've seen General Grievous, we've seen R2-D2. We know that technology exists, but how does Vader defeat his opponent? Well, he just forces him off the ship. And that guy didn't have the Force, so he couldn't Mary Poppins his way back. So even with that, there's no need for Sabine to pick her up if she can use telekinesis on herself to just take herself back to the ship. So it's
Grievous did that because he had an android body and he had feet that could hold on to metal.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we're accepting all of Disney's so-called canon media until they decide, like, hey, guess what, guys, canon doesn't matter at all, even stuff we've produced.
Right.
Then if there's no rules, there's no point. The
last thing I'll say, which I'm going to get back to, because I told you this is going to be an all rant episode. But the last thing I'll say, and Bracy mentioned it, and it jumped out at me right away, is fighting style. And what I mean by that is when you get ready for an overhead strike like this, you are so completely open. Anybody faster than you knows now's the time to gut you like a pig when you're doing this slow, dramatic, because this is ridiculous in terms of being in a firefight, opening yourself up like this. It's like not knowing how to punch and opening your center mass and trying to do a right cross or uppercut, anything like that. When you're like this, and I want you to notice Ahsoka did it tonight. Anakin did it when he was learning.
But that is
wait. Vader never fights that way. Vader never has his lightsaber too far from center mass. I just want
that's because Vader's got that console to protect. But I've seen that technique. That technique has been used in medieval martial arts. It's been used in Asian martial arts. The overhead ready position or guard is a valid fighting technique.
I agree.
Yeah, they drew it from kendo.
But I'm saying is we're talking about Jedi who has faster than normal reflexes.
And he's got faster than normal reflexes to bring that sword point back down.
And the other thing is when you fight that way, the technique then is that the whole point of that when you're in high guard is then to step off the center attack line and strike down at somebody coming that way. So you don't stay. You use your initial step to one side or the other and then strike from a straight position. So
because staying
using gravity and momentum to do the
strike. But every time Ahsoka did it tonight, I thought she was dead.
No, I'm not saying they did it right. I'm just saying when you fight that style, the whole point of that style is to get out of the way of the attack and then strike down at the person coming to attack.
Well, my big pet peeves is how many times they turn their back. Like especially the dude with the double-bladed saber. He turns his back so many times, and he's nowhere near as quick as Ray Park was as Darth Maul. He could get away with that on Padawan Obi-Wan, but not this cat.
I was going to say, like one problem I had is why is Ahsoka fighting with one saber all of a sudden? Her whole thing is fighting.
That's what I'm trying to say. It was trying.
I didn't mention that to Nim. It was like, why is she aping Darth Vader's fighting style or Anakin's fighting style? Because he did like the big overhead power shots
to be dramatic, not effective. But anyway, okay. Time for a Nemesis rant.
All right, folks.
Buckle up.
Not seen an episode of television fail in every aspect since Picard season 2. Every aspect: writing, canon, production, effects, physics, characters, music, everything. So let's go through them real quick. I don't got a lot of time, so I got to go quick here. Characters. Your characters are not acting the way they're supposed to do. Suddenly, Mon Mothma is sitting there in the middle of a galactic or a New Republic council, and she's lost her balls. This is not the same Mon Mothma for Andor. She couldn't talk her way out of jack shit anymore. She's just getting destroyed. Then, where the hell is Leia? Where the hell is the consummate politician from Alderaan? Where's she? She just effed off and took off and making kids with Han Solo? Is that what's going on? Where's Luke? We've already seen they can bring Luke in. You know how fast this thing is over? If Luke shows up to fight Dark Peroxide and you know, it's done. The whole the movie, the episode, the whole series is over in 5 minutes. Luke shows up and kills everybody. Roll credits. We're done. You know, we move on. So those are our character things real quick. I'm going to go, you know, then canon. Okay, we've already gone through a little bit, but this is going to tie a little bit to nostalgia bait. You know, I'm good for a little nostalgia bait every now and then, but this show is ridiculous. First, we had the Yavin will be in range in 5 minutes. Came up in episode 4. We had that whole little display. But in this one, we had a throwback to the blast helmet with Luke and Obi-Wan. That was going on. And by the way, Sabine should have just gotten her ass kicked in that whole thing. She doesn't have any force. She's not going to block anything while she's got the blast helmet down. So that's all going on there. Then we have to throw back to the epic fight scene where the Millennium Falcon is escaping from the Death Star in episode 4. And we had the TIE fighters coming in. And by the way, this goes to music. And this is a failure of music because music is what sets tension. DT was talking about before. You want tension. You want to build up that tension and release. Well, a large part of what drives that is music. Music builds that tension up, that action up in the scene. This was the most boring ass music for what was supposed to be a dynamic TIE fighter fight or, you know, a dog fight that I've ever seen. I still remember the music from episode 4. When my friends and I used to play X-Wing and TIE fighters on the playground, we were doing John Williams music. We're going around going dun, 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 dun. You know, this, I couldn't tell you what it was. It's so damn boring. It might as well have been Enya playing. It was that bad. That's what was going on, you know, and I don't think Enya's bad, but it's bad for this. So, you know, that was shit. The music was absolute crap. I couldn't believe how bad it was. Then let's see, more canon we got. I got to hit the elephant in the room here. Anybody can be a Jedi. Bull, BS, baloney. And you know what? For all of you who want to argue about what the Force is, and is it scientific or is it religion or whatever, those are valid arguments to have. But you know what? My opinion, it could be both, just like magic and D&D. It's a system of power in the weave that surrounds all of us. It binds all of us together. But people have turned it into a science through alchemy and potion making and scroll making and spells to be able to harness that power. But not everybody has the ability, the talent to be able to do that. Some people try it and it blows up in their face. So even though it's a part of all of us, not everybody has the ability to access that, to see the weave, to see the Force, to be able to harness the Force, to be able to use the Force. And that's okay. You can still be special. You can still feel good about yourself. You can still dye your hair blue and go out and march around and have hairy armpits. That's fine, but you're not a Jedi, all right? Get over it.
I think what gets me about this whole thing is that they keep pushing this whole narrative with Sabine, who has no talent whatsoever and is terrible at being a Jedi. And we see how terrible she is as a Jedi tonight. And in here, you have the son of a Jedi, you know, a great Jedi at that, Kanan Jarrus. And this kid is just hanging around with Hera when she should be being trained as a Padawan, and he's just over there on the ship.
Yeah. Not everybody has to be a Jedi in Star Wars, folks. You don't even have to be a Jedi to be cool. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to make a dim pronouncement here. The coolest character ever in Star Wars had zero Force ability. Han Solo was the coolest cat in Star Wars, hands down, period, in the story. Anybody who tells you that's our age, who they wanted to be, nobody wanted to be Luke Skywalker. They didn't give a F about Luke Skywalker. Everybody wanted to be Han Solo because Han Solo was cool as F. It was either Han or Lando. One of those two. That's who you wanted to be. Nobody wanted to be Luke because Luke was a little toady good in two shoes, blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy who's the Jedi. We're like, that's cool. We love you, Luke, but we want to be Han because he got the girl and he had the Wookiee friend and he piloted the cool starship. That's just the way it is, folks. You don't have to be a Jedi to be cool in Star Wars. All right. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about, because this rant's going on way too long, and we got a whole other shitty episode to talk about, was physics. All right, this is fiction. I get it. But you know what? We've got umpteen movies and TV series and everything else that have established your physics. They've established your canon, too, by the way. Whether you want to establish canon or not, and it could be shitty canon, it's still canon. It's out there. It's a crappy canon. It's a craptastic canon, but it's out there. So when you have turbo lasers blowing up into flak in the middle of space, I'm like, where the hell did this come from? And oh, by the way, in episode 4 of this series, suddenly lightsabers are smoking when they contact each other. There's smoke and dust coming off it. Where the hell did that come from? But I digress. We're going to get to that. But when they're blowing up into flak cannon, and then we're in a vacuum of space, by the way, suddenly, somehow, the flak stops dissipating because of what air pressure? What air pressure in space is stopping the flak from dissipating at that point? I mean, if you're going to do physics, and don't do bad physics, you know, make it realistic, shitty physics. You know, do that, because that should just keep going. And there should have been a giant flak cloud covering that ship so they could get away at that point. So that's number one. Number two, Ahsoka coming out and fighting out there. Now, it has already been established through multiple movies and TV shows that this is not a pure laser, that there is a plasma bolt in there. So there's some mass going on. That's why when Jedi block things with their lightsabers, they could block certain, you know, ordnance sizes, but they couldn't have, like, you couldn't have Luke out there blocking the Death Star. You know, if the Death Star is shooting down on the planet Alderaan, he could get up there and deflect it. Not going to happen. Same thing with like an AT-AT, you know, an AT-AT. When you're fighting, you're not going to block that with a lightsaber. It's just not going to happen. You're not strong enough. So you're talking a whole starship. So right there, it's a little sketchy, but, you know, I'll let that go. But then when she does the flippity foo, watch what she does. She goes in a gentle arc like gravity pulls her back down. She didn't use the force. That was gravity. Is that the same gravity that's stopping the flak over there? Because I don't know where this gravity's coming from, but that is some goddamn magic gravity, and I don't like it. And then she floats off the ship, and she's doing that thing. She asks Sabine to come here, come get her. Now, look, I have made very clear what my feelings are about Mary Poppins Leia. I think it's bullshit. I hate it. But if Mary Poppins Leia exists in this world, then damn it, I want to see Ahsoka Leia herself into that ship as well. Ahsoka should have layered herself in that ship, and they should have been gone before those 4 other Force users that should have blown that ship to bits, like Bracy said, got not even a chance to do it. Ahsoka should have been like, nope, we out. Mary Poppins, boom, right in there. Looks up at her lightsaber. The little talking parrot goes, thanks for bringing us into the ship. And they take off. Hyperspace, gone. You know, that should have been it. Over. Nimrant, done. I'm out.
Yeah, all right. we're gonna ride that energy right into episode 4. And I also want to say, and this is another reason why sometimes I just stop talking. If you don't, and you can call it a geeky debate team move if you want, because being called stuff like that doesn't bother me. If you don't know how to build an argument, you shouldn't be trying to make one. If you don't know the difference between Jedi and Force sensitive, if you want to make the argument that because the Force connects all living things and life creates it and all the stuff that Kenobi said and all the stuff that Yoda said, so we're all part of the living force because it's a living energy field generated by living things. But remember, Yoda said the rock. He said to treat the rock, and rocks aren't alive. But okay. But being force sensitive, whether that's magic or science, means you can tap into that living force that connects us all. But being a Jedi is different from being force sensitive. It requires training, it requires focus. And then if you know anything about the EU, different Jedi have different emphases, like doctors have different specialties, because there's Jedi force healers, there's Jedi prophets, there's a whole bunch of different stuff. And so it's not that you can't have these different abilities in the story world, but you need to explain them. You need to have some kind of rules. And when you just throw that out and you can just do whatever, there are no stakes. So going into episode 4, the 2 things I did like about this episode. The first thing I like is that we finally got a clear frame for what everybody's trying to do. Because the coolest part about this episode was the holographic map. We finally see what they're trying to do, where they're trying to go with a visual thing. But I like stuff like that because I'm more visual. But it brought a cohesion, because when you're chasing a little globe map, and when you're chasing a dead partner, and when you're chasing Thrawn, all that, those are words. When you see a locator device, when you see how far away you are, when you see why you need 5, 6 hyperspace engines to get there, it's different. At least it was for me. So that was the coolest part for me, was that holographic map, because everything that's happened up to this point only makes sense once you see that. Okay, number one. And number two, the lightsaber fights were, I have to say, it's cool that they happened, but they themselves weren't as cool as they could have been, mainly because Balin and Darth Peroxide so outclassed both Ahsoka, and we shouldn't even be having this conversation with Sabine in it. But it was just such a how are you still alive, kind of thing, until I'm like, okay, you got main character powers. That's it, because you should have been gutted. You should have been gutted. Every time Ahsoka took a swing, Balin didn't even change his expression. It was like Luke and Vader in Empire. He just shut her down. He just, yep, no. And I'm like, how Darth Peroxide didn't just gut Sabine, because that's really what she deserved. Like, go leave, I got this. No, you don't. What happened to Jedi reflexes? What happened to being fast enough to do things? What happened to having to bond with your Kyber crystal and understanding what it meant for you to get it to build your lightsaber? What happened to all that? And then with the little fake, I'm going to fake you out like I'm finna force push you. And she says, you have no power. I was like, well, yeah, thank you very much. And so she's doing the Mandalorian thing. And I'm like, I do not get this arc with Sabine. I don't get it. You keep proving that she's a ridiculous candidate to be trying to do any of this. Is that what you're trying to prove? Or, as we suspect, is it going to be at the very end, she's going to do this miracle thing? You know what I'm talking about. She's going to pull a miracle Jedi move that it would take most people 20 years to master. She's just going to all of a sudden be there like Rey. And I'm like, if that's what y'all setting up,
that'd be worse than Rey.
No, it's going to be just like the that gal from the Wheel of Time.
Yeah,
the wisdom. Yeah. All of a sudden, she's going to go Super Saiyan.
I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
I saw an ad for season 2, which I won't be watching.
So what I'm seeing in episode 4 was, again, I'm saying to myself, now, wait a minute. Are Jedi like Highlanders? Can't they sense their presence? And what is the range of that? Or is that just family? Because we know Luke and Vader once.
No, they're supposed to be able to sense each other, and there's techniques that allow you to mask your Force presence.
Not only,
but not everybody knows that.
Vader detected Obi-Wan, and they're not family.
In the books,
okay. But as we all know, Vader stood right behind his daughter in A New Hope.
In the books, though, it said in a lot of the books, it says that every lightsaber battle is fought not only on the physical plane, but in the Force as well. So they're trying to overwhelm each other with the Force at the same time. So it's like there's a whole battle that we don't even see going on.
But he didn't recognize Luke until he started using the Force via Obi-Wan. So maybe that's the reason for Leia. She'd never used the Force before, so she didn't have a Force footprint, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like Steve said, Obi-Wan and Anakin could always sense each other. And like I said, what's the range on that sensing?
But that's different. Those two have been Jedi working together for a decade.
So it's not family, so it's familiarity.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. It's almost like a mental touch. You get used to someone's mental touch, their ability. Like somebody a close friend comes to the room, you can tell who they are without turning around, type thing.
But Vader was on his Star Destroyer at the end of Empire, and Luke was on the Falcon. Vader looked up and said, "Luke," and Luke was like, "Father," just like that.
Yeah,
Vader reached out to him.
Consistent rules.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out how it works because Ahsoka's out there and she's walking around and she's got that pensive. She's doing the slow thing, like I sense something, like my Jedi spider sense is tingling, but not enough. So she's like, watch yourself out here. And so then what? And then my almost third favorite moment was when we get the Rock'em Sock'em robot moment when they attack, you know, and it looked
That was pretty fun.
It looked just like Rock'em Sock'em. I'm like, this is going to be good. But I'm like, wait a minute.
Real Steel Part 2.
Weren't you training Sabine in lightsaber techniques just last episode?
Yes.
You know, so don't you have
he's
the Blue
been doing
Beetle?
that since the
Yeah,
Clone
why didn't
Wars.
he use the extra arms?
Right, you got the Blue Beetle Iron Spider extra back arms going. Where is
He
that?
should be doing General Grievous like stuff.
Yeah, well,
right. Where's the extra speed? Right.
My question was, why wasn't the HK droid taking the sniper shot from 500 yards away?
I guess I wondered about that too, but I was like, is it they'll hear the blaster fire?
And they're not going to hear the robots hitting each other metal on metal?
I'm trying to give it some sort of thing. And then the whole thing is like, why did, the droids are meant to be expendable.
Jedi can sense droids. They sense the energy patterns.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen them do that. But on top of that, why did the flesh and blood guys with the guns, why did they get within 100 yards of these people?
I don't know.
They got close enough to get lightsabered. Like, what? No. Stay your ass back in the woods and snipe. Let the droids go in.
They were all wearing red undershirts.
The bad guys deserve to lose. The bad guys deserve to lose because they're just dumb.
I will put this out there, though.
And the good guys deserve to lose because they set themselves up to be ambushed.
Disney deserves to lose.
I have a couple.
Why not set up Sabine to guard the ship while the droid fixed the ship?
I have a couple disagreements with you on Sabine and Ahsoka in this one. So, but they're different disagreements. Ahsoka, I think they dumbed down way too much. Ahsoka is not the strongest fighter among Jedi, but she was trained by arguably the greatest Jedi of all time. She's incredibly good.
She's remarkably strong. Did you remember? Did you see Anakin's training with her with the 501st?
Yeah,
that's why Ahsoka. That's what makes Ahsoka powerful. Is she's got that Obi-Wan ability to deflect damn near anything that comes her way or get out of the way of it. That's her main.
There's an episode of Tales of the Jedi that showed how Anakin trained her to survive the Order 66. So she should definitely know better than what we've seen in this episode.
Yeah, and Balin is just some effing dude. You know, I don't know who Balin is, but you know, so there's that. Number two is that it should have even been worse for Balin because in my opinion, Ahsoka showed more emotion in this. She was more like the Ahsoka from Clone Wars and Rebels than I've seen in this whole series. And Ahsoka pissed off, Ahsoka acting out of emotion because she's not a Jedi, by the way, is a dangerous Ahsoka.
Yeah.
When she gets like that, she fights. She is very deadly.
We did get to see some of that where she, I kind of appreciate seeing more people like throw in like a Darth Smoke. He likes to do the sweeps. And Ahsoka actually using her legs, although every time she hit Balin with her legs, I kept thinking like, well, you know, if you just stabbed him right then, it would be over.
Yeah. Now, as for Sabine, I'm going to agree with you in that when she switched to fighting with the lightsaber, she should have been a dead woman. But when she was fighting as a Mandalorian, which is what she's trained as, she held her own, and it makes perfect sense to me because she has fought Jedi or Inquisitors before as a Mandalorian. And you even saw it, whether it was intentional or not, I can't tell you. But when she was fighting as a Mandalorian, she instinctively uses her Beskar to block strikes from the lightsaber. She instinctively uses her Beskar to block bolts, blaster bolts coming in for her. She uses her various Mandalorian weapons in very smart and tactical ways. She's a Mandalorian. She's not a Jedi. The minute
every time she tries to be a Jedi, she sucks at it. Every time she tries to fight like a Mando, that's when she starts getting ahead in the fight.
And I even like the fake out. I was like, oh, the Force, psych.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. This show has so soured me. I'm not willing to give them credit for that and say that was an intentional move, that they made her better as a Mandalorian than a Jedi. I think it was completely by accident. But that's the way it should be. Maybe because that's who. But
I will say, the one thing I did like was her faking out dark peroxide. You know, with her doing the fake Jedi mind trick thing, and then using that to set up a Mandalorian weapon.
No, I love that part. I actually agree.
That was clever. That is the kind of stuff Sabine should be doing. But she's not a Jedi. She never will be.
But I am going to make DT's point, and we could chalk this up to arrogance for dark peroxide, but a Jedi with Jedi reflexes, and granted, she's a Padawan, should have been able to deflect that or bring her lightsaber over to deflect it somehow. You know, so
That was that was my overall point. I don't disagree with you about Sabine's skill as a Mandalorian warrior and how that's the best feature about her, and she needs to stick with what she's been trained to do, which is what anybody would do in a fight, which is most instinctive, that which you've done most often. But what I mean is you can't show Darth Peroxide being as fast as she is and being as skilled as she is and then using the force choke from behind. Okay, now I know that Darth Vader's on another level, and that's what we found out in Empire, because he threw the whole kitchen sink at Luke and fought him with the lightsaber.
Without even gesturing.
Right, a whole bunch of stuff. He's just I get it. But still, the level of skill that Darth Peroxide did show, I still didn't believe for a second that even with Sabine's Mando training, she could have gone toe-to-toe with her that long. And Sabine opened herself up too many times. That's why I brought up the point earlier. There's too many times in the middle of that.
The smart thing would be to go 2-on-1, take out Darth Peroxide, and then confront Balin together.
You've got to think it's got to be dark side sort of arrogance, because one force choke is all it takes for her to end the fight, because Sabine can't block a force choke.
And every time we've seen Mandalorians, either in the books when we read the books or the extended universe and stuff, or in live action, fight and kill Jedi, they keep their distance and use their technology to overwhelm the Jedi and eventually kill them. That's the way they win.
There's a whole list of things that HK-47 talks about in Knights of the Old Republic 2 that work against Jedi. And Mandos are smart enough to use a lot of those tactics. And yet, do we see Sabine use any of them? Not really.
Yeah. As we said before, the Mandalorian way of fighting in armor was specifically designed to counter Jedi, because these two sects were at odds with each other for centuries.
And there is, I'm not going to say it's canon, but there's fan canon out there that the reason that the Mandalorians are like this, and there aren't a lot of Mandalorian Jedi, is because it's just not a natural skill set for Mandalorians. And so in order to keep up the arms race, the Mandalorians developed a different way of fighting,
that and their ideological differences, because, the whole idea is that Jedi forgo all attachments. And with the Mandalorians, they believe that solidarity and unity is the way.
Mandalorians are loaded with attachments.
Okay, now
they use that as a strength.
Now, I think that brings up another point, that you know how something's itching in the back of your head? Mm-hmm. You got to try to put it in word form, but you feel it more than you can say it. This is what happens for me personally when you remove the light side and dark side structure, and when you remove the idea of managing your emotions has everything to do with what side of the force you're on, how much force power you can use, because the books always said that Yoda had force lightning. He just refused to use it because he knew he'd have to get you angry. And Luke found that out too. Luke got angry several times when you read the Zahn books, and he realized he had to meditate, calm, and pull himself back, because he's like, that's pulling me towards like what my dad must have done. But Yoda had force lightning in the books. You never see it in the movies. You only see Sith using force lightning, but Jedi have it. They just know the amount of passion it would take to summon it.
I mean, it's clear that a Jedi could use... Yeah, exactly. It's clear that a Jedi could use Force Lightning if he was willing to open himself up to the dark side like Count Dooku did.
Right. And so my point is that when you remove all of that and you have these kinds of lightsaber fights, but nobody's actually struggling with their emotions or their attitude or their passion or what am I doing, or it's not kind of an issue, that kind of thing, that's another thing that makes them so less exciting and so more boring, because you don't have the stakes of character. You don't have the stakes of Ahsoka saying, I've already renounced the Jedi Order. How far am I going to go with what I can do?
I also think that this is a failure, especially for the movies and the TV shows, to define exactly what the difference is between a dark force user and a Sith. The games have done a lot better job at explaining why a Sith is a Sith and a dark force user or a dark Jedi is a dark Jedi. But if you have not done all of that, you have no idea what the difference is. It doesn't make any sense.
And I don't know.
I bet you anybody that only knows the Sith from the movies and all of that have no idea that the Sith is actually an alien race, and that is the way. That's who developed
started.
The Sith Yeah.
And like it's so weird that they do this because when you're putting out an IP and you want the broadest demographic that you can get to make the most money, but this show is so dependent on you knowing all the lore. They're counting on you to be such an uber mega nerdy Star Wars fan that you've read all the books, that you've watched all the shows, that you've read the comics, you've played the games, all that. But that's not the case, man. The world is
Yeah.
mostly made up of normies. They are not going to know any of this, and it's just like you talking about Jason. Like I'm sure people are going like, okay, who's this kid? Why is he important? I don't get it. He's hanging out with a green chick,
Yeah.
whatever. Move on
Most-
to the lightsaber fight.
Most people have never seen his father. They have no idea he ever
Yeah.
existed.
Whereas you want to talk about a wonderful depiction without even using words of the defining of the two opposing forces. Lucas did this brilliantly during the Duel of the Fates sequence with Qui-Gon and Darth Maul, where they get separated by the force fields. And what does Qui-Gon do? He goes into a meditative state. Anakin is his Padawan. He's anxious, worried about the fate of his master because they're separated. He never sits down. He never meditates. He's just sitting there itching, raring to go. And Darth Maul, what does he do? He paces like a tiger. He is just, I can't wait till this comes down because now you're separated, old man. I'm going to finish you off.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
I'm
great character without even a single stitch of dialogue.
That's right. So I'm going to throw this out before we wrap up. I question Hera's parenting, bringing her kid with her in the middle of that
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
For
that-
real.
I was like, wait.
100%.
I was like, you could have bought it. Half of the X-Wing squad did buy it, and you got your kid out there, and you're just having this conversation. No. So
Why didn't you just do the typical kid thing? Like, no, honey, you need to stay here, and the kid sneaks onto the ship.
That's right.
I can accept that trope.
That's
Not
right.
to mention,
The kid
why-
should be a Jedi apprentice, and we actually see that he is force sensitive. I have a bad feeling about this, and you can tell that. But this
He cheated us. He didn't have the about
They-
I
this.
mean, the conversation and the vibe didn't match the situation.
Yeah.
And plus, the whole compliment of what she took with her didn't make sense to me either. You're going on a quote unquote rescue mission against a force that is, got some heft to it, probably. And you take so you take one squad of X-Wings plus a one or two, and you take the Ghost, which is a cargo ship. Why aren't you taking a frigate or something? It's like,
Well, the council wouldn't approve. Well, if you're going to be a general and disobey orders, just take that Mon Cal cruiser you're in with you.
yeah, just go. Yeah.
And
And then the
Go out in a
lack
blaze
of
of glory.
I've criticized the bad guys for not using any sort of tactics to destroy a hobbled ship, but now they're like, oh, the ring is powering up its hyperdrive. Well, I'll tell you what, let's all just stay right in front of it so
Concentrate
we can get
fire on the
destroyed.
ring.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to open up, and then they'd only be like, oh shit, evasive maneuvers, and they just sit there and get, half the ships get taken out by the hyperdrive wave as it zaps through them.
See, I was expecting another nostalgia bait there where we got the thing where, Han Solo was like, the shields are or not Han Solo, Lando, the shields are still up, and then everybody's peeling off,
right.
And then some of them don't make it.
And the last thing that I will say that I actually did enjoy, even though I don't know what kind of physics, I don't know if we can even ascribe, science fiction physics to it. I did enjoy the idea of that massive ring making that massive hyper jump. I thought it was at least cool to look at. It begs the question to me: has anybody done this before? Is this the first time?
That's the first time I've ever seen it in any of the media.
Right, but I'm saying if such a thing was possible,
The closest thing I can think of is like with the Jedi starfighters used to use a ring to travel.
But that's,
I guess it's probably using this it's probably like an upgraded version of that.
Well, the
technology,
Jedi starfighters didn't have their own hyperdrive unit like the X-wings do, just like TIE fighters don't. So they needed the booster rocket. But this ring, they mentioned it's bigger on a bigger scale. It's going to be able to transport you to galaxies away.
But they mentioned in episode 2 of Ahsoka that this ring is a scaled up design of the Jedi ring that was used on our starships. So
Okay. Well, I really
so maybe that's something else Balin brought to the table.
Right. I really enjoyed watching them pull that off, although it opens up it opens up so many different story branches if this kind of technology is.
But I gotta admit, I like this because it's not another freaking Death Star for a change. It's a way to move troops swiftly.
But see, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And so, and they do know that Thrawn will recognize all the tactical possibilities of this kind of technology, and that's why I enjoyed it, because that opens up a whole new level of fighting. But the last thing we have to talk about is obviously the ending, and we're going to need Steve to, just for all those who haven't watched every episode of Rebels and Clone Wars and Mando, we're going to have to ask Steve to help us understand the significance of the world between worlds and Ahsoka waking up there and her meeting Anakin there. So go ahead on and break it down, Professor Steve.
Oh man, I have to say the whole setup for this is so stupid. I mean, they have her Ahsoka fighting Balin. She falls off the edge of the water. And I will honestly, when that happened, my first thought was she's faking her death. She got on the ship and she snuck on there and she's just hanging out there. And had that been the case, I would have been fine with it. Instead, they referenced season 4 of Rebels with the world between worlds, which to me is like one of the dumbest, most tacked on concepts that I've seen in Star Wars. And even back when this came out, I didn't like it, because what it is, it introduces the concept of time travel within the Star Wars universe. So what happened is that they found an old temple, this kind of thing, and they open up a mechanism that takes them to this interdimensional space between space and time called the world between worlds. And the whole thing was designed by Dave Filoni as an excuse to bring Ahsoka back when she was seemingly killed by Darth Vader in the end of season 2. So it was something that he just pretty much came up with out of whole cloth, so that Ezra could go and save Ahsoka, and then it just hasn't really been used since, and it shouldn't be. I just don't think time travel works in the context of Star Wars. There are a lot of different science fiction tropes that you can use in Star Wars. Time travel does not work.
No. And why is Anakin Skywalker there?
Presumably because he's one of those echoes that you're seeing in the world between worlds, because all these moments in time are connected, and so because of that, you can interact with the past in a limited way, and that's probably what's going on here. It probably was a convenient way of bringing in Hayden Christensen to be involved in the show, which is like, okay, I love seeing Anakin. I want to see Anakin and Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka interact together. That's awesome. I don't like the way that they did it. It should have been a flashback of some kind.
You should have been a Force Ghost. Should have been
or I would have taken a Force Ghost.
I really thought that's what he was going to be in there.
But no. It's he's in the worlds between worlds, and Ahsoka fell into that for some reason that is not explained, because there is no mechanism by which she could have done this that we are aware of.
Unless she's dead.
Unless she's dead. Even if she's
dead,
don't
kill Jedi.
Even if she's dead, it's nonsense. I mean,
it is.
It makes no sense. It's just a convenient hand wave for Filoni to do what he wants to do, which is the only reason that the concept even exists. I hate it.
So that's what I'm talking about not having any rules, or not having any canon, or not having anything that's consistently true. Because once you open the door to any type of time travel, any type of medium by which you can traverse galaxies, but also chronology, what's going to happen is stuff's going to happen in there that is both going to be some of the stuff you want to see, and it has no stakes. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't change what happened out here. It doesn't change Anakin becoming Vader and everything. It happens.
No, but this is how Ahsoka is going to find Sabine, is because she's going to find a doorway through the world between worlds to come back on the other side, and she'll be like magically over there, and it's going to have something to do with whatever
fixes everything
vision quest she's having with Anakin. It's not
magical.
Magical mystery tour.
So in conclusion, we feel like Ahsoka is, again, I know just by doing some more research that Disney had a lot riding on the show, and a lot of people thought this was going to be it. A lot of people thought that this show was going to be the thing that brought Star Wars back or returned it to its former glory or brought in a whole new generation of viewers, because the only man in the show that's worth anything is Balin, the We Are No Jedi dude, and everybody else is woman. So everybody thought, like, what's her name?
We'll
thought,
get Thrawn too. So
yeah,
There's Merrick, but he sucks and he dies.
all the men are bad guys.
right, or lame. So that's what the new generation wants. Of course, is every show is a girl boss show.
And there's an article out. I haven't added it into our chat yet. That's talking about like Ahsoka is basically the face of Star Wars going forward. If that's the case, guys, I'm not looking positively on your chances, because this is not it. This is not the vehicle that's going to do it.
Well, not only that, how is Ahsoka the face of Star Wars going forward when by the time a few years from now, the episodes 7, 8, 9 come out, Ahsoka's nowhere to be found?
Because canon doesn't matter. It's like Steve said earlier. Where's Princess Leia in the midst of all this? Where's Luke in the midst of all this?
I'm sorry. I had a moment of rationality. I'm going to go and spank myself in the corner now. So thank you.
I could have seen it working if it were better executed, and you didn't have this kind of stupid stuff going on in the show, and you didn't have the obvious girl bossery going on. If it was written as well as most of Rebels, I don't think that I would have a problem with this, and I think I would have been okay with Ahsoka being the face. But the problem is that the quality's not there, and they expect this show to hold up Star Wars when it's on its last legs. They're just made too many mistakes.
And see, that's my point. Is that nostalgia and member berries. You can see when the behind the scenes thought was, we just need to put this on screen, and that'll be good enough to wow the audience. And the audience keeps saying, no, we want a story that makes sense around the characters and the nostalgia and the member berries. You can't just throw it in the mix and say member, because that doesn't make it a good story.
Not only that, I mean, Rebels set them up. Rebels had laid it up for them. There's a giant softball waiting to be hit out of the park. You could have gone to a completely different galaxy with a new villain in Thrawn, who for most people had just had Sabine, Hera, and Ezra's new adventures in the new galaxy versus the new
where you
empire
could have done
anything
in a whole new setting.
Yeah.
And there are characters there's so many great characters from Rebels that we've seen absolutely nothing of. No Zeb, no Agent Talus. I mean, that guy was awesome in Rebels. No Rex. Because we have to show these characters because the Force is female. And I'm just like, you're missing like half the cast. And then you have Jason, who should have been the Padawan, and he's nowhere.
Like, everything's so dumbed down. I don't remember which thing you were talking about. There was another article that says like we have intentionally dumbed down certain shows because young people and audiences.
That was The Witcher.
The Witcher. Yeah, they're saying like they can't handle a complex show, and that's bullshit. You are creating content for the lowest possible denominator of the audience out there. Your expectations are so low. How can we enjoy anything you've got when it's insulting to our very intelligence?
Okay,
you take something great and you water it down, and then you say it's our fault for not liking it. No, it's your fault for messing it up.
Right. And that is the time we live in now.
Yeah.
It's insulting to our intelligence, and then you water it down, and then you say, you're too stupid to understand more complex stuff, and this failed because you didn't like it. And no. So we don't need to hear that anymore. And I, for one, will be glad when this age is over. This age of wokeness, this age of whatever you want to call. I'll be glad when that's over, because I'm concentrating on good storytelling everywhere we turn.
We used to get media that was the equivalent of something like Van Gogh's Starry Night, and you're trying to sell us crayon drawings, like coloring books, and telling us that's the same thing. But it's not. My
favorite meme is year 1 and the horse is drawn really well, and year 2 and it's kind of bad, and year 3 is just a stick horse.
Yeah.
That's my favorite meme. And on that note, we're going to wrap this up. I started to say I hope there's some kind of payoff, but now I'm kind of cringing thinking about it, because I'm like, what is it going to be?
Well, I will say this. It could always be worse. You could have the whole Bat family turn on Batman because he doesn't support crime.
No, he's a fascist. That's been established, right?
Look for that
Flash told us.
Look for that rant room later on this week because, oh Lord, have mercy.
It's such a shame because especially after Mandalorian, which I pinned all my hopes on, Mandalorian 3 was so bad I didn't finish watching the season, and I was really looking forward to Ahsoka to pick me back up, and Ahsoka is at best meh.
At best, meh. All right, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you so much, Nims.
Absolutely. So, thank you for letting me get that off my chest. I've been storing that up for a week. So.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, this show is just one that I really wanted to enjoy, and I think I probably hated it less than a lot of people. But at the same time, it is a mid show. I mean, they just dropped the ball on too many things, and at a critical moment when they really needed something great to get the franchise going again, they just completely messed it up. And it's
Nim said they failed at everything, and then he listed all the points. Thank you so much, Bracy.
First of all, Nim's rant was worth the price of admission, even watching this show.
It's more entertaining than the show, to be fair.
And secondly, this Ahsoka is a character who has one of the most interesting histories ever developed in media. She was intentionally made to be a character you did not like. She was made to be annoying, and and she had and this is genius. This is genius. She was written to be such an annoying little bratty, I don't give a shit character. And then you slowly watch her evolution. And this was all part of Filoni's plan when he created her. We're going to make this character that nobody likes, and I'm going to make you love her. And by God, he did it. We all ended up loving Ahsoka and watching her evolution through, being, a teenager into this grown woman in Mandalorian. But now it's like, where did she go?
That's right. Same place the audience went. All right. Thanks so much to everybody that watched us live. Thanks to everybody that's watching the replay. Don't forget to check out the other stuff we got going on at Comic Crusaders. We have something for everybody. We got retro shows. We got artist shows. We got interviews. We got reviews. So please be sure to check out other things on our Comic Crusaders YouTube channel because there's literally something here for every whatever type of geek you are, we got something for you. And me and this crew will see you the next time on the next episode of Sloppy Spoilers. Spoilers.